Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positivity here on the show, and with me right now, I've got a very special guest. You may know her from her time on Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, Glow, and she has a great story. She's going to talk to us today about her career, her time in the wrestling business. Pleased to welcome the one and only Royal Hawaiian, April Hom, to the show. Welcome, April, to Wrestling with Heart.
Thank you. Aloha. Thanks for having me.
Yes, pleasure's all mine. So let's talk about your childhood and upbringing. Where are you from?
Actually, I was born in Hollywood, so I don't know if that's the beginning spot to start off with, and that's kind of where I am today. I was born in Hollywood at Kaiser on Sunset Boulevard, and I grew up and then moved. I grew up in Chavez Ravine, so I've been a Dodger fan from birth, and I lived in the little neighborhood right there with Dodger Stadium as my backyard, and lived there with my mom and my dad and my two brothers. And I do have a sister, but she came many years later, 6 years later. So she didn't grow up in that area. But so I was destined to be an entertainer. My dad comes from a musically inclined family and a lot of musical background. So I kind of had the entertainment bug from an early age. I started dancing at the age of 5, right in East LA in Boyle Heights. And full circle, I do a radio show in Boyle Heights. I co-host with Patrick J. Martinez, the DJ at Ham Radio. So my career started at the age of 5 as a dancer, and I was a flamenco dancer, all the Latin dancing and Mexican dancing, and then from there I went on to modeling and acting, and I became an athlete at an early age. I was a cheerleader. My brothers played sports and they played football, and I became a cheerleader. I was one of the first girls to play boys Little League baseball in the city of Alhambra. So here in Southern California in the San Gabriel Valley, there were no girls sports at the time. So yeah, so I grew up between two boys, and I was a tomboy. My older brother was 14 months older. My younger brother was 14 months younger. And so I wanted to do everything my brothers did, and being trees and, playing ball in the street and riding bikes and all that. And so I asked my parents, I said, well, why can't I play baseball with my brothers? And they said, well, it's for boys. It's not girls. They don't have girls. And so they said, well, let us check. And they went and they checked with the Little League, and they said, we've not had anybody ever ask if a girl could play. So they took it to the board, and they said I could. And so I became the first girl to play boys Little League baseball here in one of the areas where I grew up in Alhambra. And that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, it seems like you had a really good childhood. I mean, when you live in a big city like LA, Los Angeles, there's that energy, that pulse. And being surrounded by family members that have been in the entertainment business and are doing things and get to see so much, and growing up around a family that's very close, and it really motivates you to do a lot of things. So
I was lucky. I had a great childhood and lots of diversity, and I'm multiracial. So, we were always, around different cultures and different people and all walks of life, and, got experience of those kinds of things at an early age. And it was all fun, it was all, neat things to do. And my mom was really influential as far as being like my stage mom for all my performances with dancing and, doing my costumes and hair and makeup and all of that. And then just continuing to, let me do what I wanted to do. And I was an athlete, and so I played sports, but she kept me involved in things that kept the femininity there.
Yeah.
And I was a model, and she put me in beauty pageants, and I was Miss Alhambra and Miss Chinatown. So kind of a little bit of everything. And people ask, well, what do you think all of that had to do? I said, all of that had to do with where I ended up going when I did get Glow, because all of those things kind of
Comes
were
together.
who I was, that when I got the show, it just kind of fell in my lap. And then the Royal Hawaiian, right? So I don't know, just I'm lucky. I had a great upbringing and childhood, and I did have some bullying, and that's one of the things that I do work with today is advocating for bullying and um, suicide prevention and stuff like that. But I
Yes.
was as a kid. I've been wearing glasses since the age of 5, so I was called Four Eyes. I used to have these octagon kind of frames or rims,
Mm-hmm.
what frames, and they used to call me Stop Sign. So kids can be cruel, and all the things that you know you you don't think that are going to actually have a footprint or a
An
stamp
effect.
effect exactly on what you think about, because here I am, I'm 61 years old, and I still I go back to when I hear of kids being bullied, or even adults, the bullying that happens with adults is just incredible too, that it's just so sad. But it's a flashback, and I think, God, I went through that when I was a kid. But luckily for me, I had the positive reinforcement with all the other things that allowed me to be extroverted, to take some of that negative energy and turn it around and do something positive with it. So
Exactly.
in outgoing, I was not a shy kid, not at all. So
Ah,
it was a benefit or a blessing in disguise, if you will. But it's still unfortunate because some kids don't bounce back like that.
no, they don't. Not to mention the technology that we're all surrounded by with social media and the computers and things like that. I mean, it's just
Horrible.
unbelievable what kids have to go through now. You know, it's
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah, it is. So I look at giving back, and my thing is when I started with Glow, I was working in Hollywood. So I was born in Hollywood, and then I my parents moved out of the downtown LA area, or Chavez Ravine, and moved out to the Alhambra area, San Gabriel Valley, and was a little bit further east, going towards Palm Springs, that direction, and just moved into a more of a neighborhood suburb versus being in the city, because being in Chavez Ravine, we
Yeah.
were surrounded by everything. Chinatown, downtown LA was 10 minutes away, and
You were
we
right in the central
were
location.
right in everything. Yeah. And so
Yes.
I was only there for a few years from birth until I think it was like first grade. So I went to
Mm.
one little school there, and then we moved out of the area, and from there I ended up migrating back to Hollywood after high school. All the stuff that led up to it. I was a cheerleader for my brother's um, pop junior All-American football, and I think I was like 7. And that led to I continued to be in drill team and a cheerleader in grade school, and then in high school I was a JV cheerleader and a varsity cheerleader, and then after that I went to college. And in my college days I was going to school, working, and doing auditions. So I went to Cal State LA, which was kind of in between home and Hollywood. And then I got a job in Hollywood eventually. And I worked right in the heart of Hollywood between Sunset and Hollywood on El Central. And I was there for a reason. I said I wanted to be near where everything was going on.
Yes.
And so my agent worked right across the hall from where I worked in my office. We ran a secretarial service, and my manager was, or my boss was just wonderful. She just said, you know what? You get an interview, go. You have an audition, go. She says, just leave, come back. You can make up the hours, lose the hours, whatever you need, because she knew why I was there. And so my agent across the hall, Bob Yanes, was partners with, Todd Bridges, his
Hmm.
dad, Jeff Bridges. And
Yeah.
he was a talent agent, and he was partners with my agent. So they came across the hall one day and said, "Hey, there's this call that just came in, and they're looking for all kind of girls, all walks of life, all shapes and sizes, ethnicities." But they didn't say what it was for. They just said it's for a TV pilot. And that's all they said, other than they said, if you were athletic, it would be a plus. And I said, "Oh, okay, I'm in." I said, "That's me." I said, I'll go. And so they sent me. It was at the Hyatt Hotel on Sunset Boulevard, and 1,000 girls showed up.
Yeah, like a lot of
Every
people.
Yeah, everything you could think of: models, actresses, singers, dancers, cheerleaders, skaters, athletes, housewives, single girls. Every shape, size you could think of. And we got there, and there was a big ring in the middle of the room. And then David McLean and Matt Simber get up and they say, "Well, thank you all for being here. You're all here for an all women's wrestling TV show." And so a third of the girls got up and left. They're like, "I'm not breaking a nail. I'm not here to get hurt. This is not what I came for." And for me, this is just what I was looking for. I was looking for whatever could come up that I could get involved with. That's why I was working in Hollywood. And so they did the auditions. They had us get in the ring and see if some of us can tumble. And again, I had the cheerleading background, so I did gymnastics and all of that. And then they had some cameras throughout the room, and they were doing kind of like just dry run, off the cuff kind of little screen tests, and said, "Come on and tell us about yourself. And it was exciting. It was a lot of girls, and they had the 12 characters that they were trying to cast for the pilot. So they knew what they were looking for. And so, they said, "Oh, we're looking for, an Americana and a Tina and Ashley, and, a California doll, Spanish Red, and the Royal Hawaiian." And that was like, wow, now how is that more perfect? Right? Just dropped in my lap. I'm a hula dancer. I lived half my life in Hawaii. I've got the background. Everything is just kind of surreal, like, wow, is this really happening? And so I did the little screen test, and I said, "Well, I'm your Royal Hawaiian. I'm here. I grew up on Waikiki Beach. That's where I learned to surf and paddle a canoe and sail a boat and mess with the local boys."
When
Learn
did you live in Hawaii?
For over 25 years.
25 years.
So a long time. That's just the living part. But my dad's family's from Hawaii. So as a kid, that's where I was lucky. I grew up between California and Hawaii. We spent summer times on the beach, and then any holiday or 3-day weekend, we could con our parents into saying, "Let us just go at Auntie's for the weekend." My mom worked for the airline, so we could come and go as we pleased,
Get some
right?
perks, yes.
Yeah, so we took advantage of if it was a 3-day weekend, we would beg, "Can we leave Friday, or can we stay Monday or Tuesday?" And we go for whatever 3 or 4 day weekend. And that was what it is. Everybody there thought we lived there, because we spent like weeks after weeks or months, summer times. We were
Hmm.
all, and then people here, they were like, "Why do you go to Hawaii so much?" And like, is your dad a pilot? Or, and he has nothing to do with the airlines, but it was my mom. And then eventually, after Glow, when I got hurt, I ended up going and working with my mom at United Airlines, because I thought, I can't lose my benefits. I said, I got to get a job and be able to fly back and forth. So I worked for them in California and Hawaii, and used to travel back and forth to Chicago as well, because I was a supervisor and manager. That we have our headquarters in Chicago. And so, there was all this different stuff going on, but Glow was real exciting. And so I ended up getting cast in that. And they dwindled us. Only from that audition, they only picked two of us. So out of the original 12, they only casted two of us from that audition, and I was one of them. So it was real exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then 12 of us, there was originally, they had about maybe 40-ish, somewhere around there, girls that they took to the gym and started training with Mondo Guerrero.
Yes, I had Hollywood on a
Yeah,
while back, and she was talking about the training process and being able to work, and it was really tough, I'd imagine.
yeah. Well, her and I were the two that were picked from that audition.
Mm-hmm.
Only two that came out of the initial day one of Glow. And so when we were at the training, it was intense because, some of them had no background in sports or athletics. So it was tough. And then some of us just really loved it. Like for me, it was easy. I just took to it, and it was exciting. It was fun. I could do it, and but it was hard. It was
Yeah.
definitely something new. I mean, yeah, I had the cheerleading background and I was an athlete, but taking bumps and learning all the moves, and Mondo was really strict. Like we tell the story about when we were training and some of the girls weren't paying attention, and he grabbed the first girl and put her in a headlock, and then he eventually gave her the sleeper hold, and she passed out. And
Wow.
he tells the story because sometimes he's gone
Mm.
and done panels with us, and he'd say, "Oh yeah, she was flip flopping on the floor because she just passed out." And then all the girls were like, "Oh my god!" And he's like, "Yeah, now do I have your attention? You guys aren't paying attention while I'm teaching something. You guys are going to get hurt." He says, "You got to be paying attention." So from that point on, everybody was pretty much focused, and it took some time because some of the girls just didn't get it. So, Matt and David and Mondo had to weed out the ones that weren't working. They might have had the look that they were looking for, but they weren't grasping the wrestling. And then vice versa. There were some girls that were really good at the wrestling, but they didn't quite know where they were going to fit in with which character did they think going to use them for. So, every time we went, some girls would be gone, whether it was by choice or not, and then the wrestling, we were done, and we did the pilot in December of 1985. It didn't air till 1986, but once we did the pilot, then we had to go sell it. So it had to go to the NAPI convention. It was syndicated, and we had to get stations to actually buy the show. And then when it got picked up, we started, and I was asked to be one of the trainers for the show. So myself and Americana were the trainers for the show. So season one girls, we hired all the new girls and then we trained them. And then season one, we started filming and everything. And, it became a big hit. We didn't know what we were doing. Nobody gave David McLean a handbook and said, this is how you create an all women's wrestling league, because there wasn't anything like it, right?
No, it was unheard of.
Yeah, unheard of. And you only had, the very few. Oop, my pineapples are falling. You had the women wrestlers that wrestled in between the men's matches. You had one every blue moon, and those pretty much were just the break for you to go to the bathroom or go get your beer or, freshen up your snacks and stuff like that. So, we really didn't know. We didn't know if it was going to succeed. We didn't know how it was going to be accepted, right? Here we are going into a male dominated sport that it's never been done before. And so, little did we know it was going to be, so popular. And then you took David's idea of getting pretty girls to wrestle. And at the beginning, they thought, oh, you guys are mud wrestlers. We're like, no, we're not mud
You're
wrestlers.
the real deal.
We are professional wrestlers, just like what you see Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and all of those guys, what they're doing. We're trying to introduce this to the world of women's wrestling. And,
Yeah.
I mean, who knew it would take off? And it just, was really popular because then Matt our director ended up adding in all the campiness, the laugh in and the hee haw kind of comedy sketches and music videos and all the fun stuff that everybody really liked. David wasn't so hot about it, but it worked. And the combination was a good mix and everybody loved it, and so it was just a lot of fun to do. And then the feedback from the fans was, they loved it. Let's just keep going. And unfortunately, I didn't get to continue because I got hurt. So I only did the pilot and then season one and part into two. And then it went on season 2, 3, and 4. So I wish it would have been longer, but unfortunately it didn't last. And it's a bummer, but You know,
What
people,
happened?
well, I had several injuries, unfortunately. I had pre pilot, I was wrestling barefooted. I started wrestling barefooted. And then we did a promo here in Hollywood at the Tom Schneider show, and it was they put it outside. There was a ring, and we had like a battle royale. And I just have an old basketball injury with the bad sprained ankle, and I just tripped and twisted bad, and then it was pretty bad. And so ever since then, I just said, you know what, I'm going to have to wear boots. And so I ended up putting on boots. And I don't know if you know that I did play a second character also.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I played Sarah of the S&M, Sarah and Mabel tag team. We're
Hmm.
these the masked characters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sarah, and then Nadine, who was Ashley Cartier. She played Mabel, and so we were the tag team. And so that was another thing that I did. And so going into the boots, I just had to have two separate pair of boots because one was blue, like my Royal Hawaiian stuff, and then I had black ones, which were for Sarah and Mabel. And I'm surprised that nobody knew that it was us because we did have kind of distinctive body types, right? And but we did change. Like I had to change my total mannerisms of how not to wrestle like the Royal Hawaiian, right?
Yeah,
And
change things to make it seem different.
different, yeah.
Tweak it.
Which is hard because I used to have either a tag team match with Spanish Red, singles match as Royal Hawaiian, and then a tag team match with Sarah Mabel. So sometimes, I was doing more than one or two matches in the show. So it was like just trying to change hats, and then my voice is pretty distinctive. So it's like I couldn't talk like I do like this as Royal Hawaiian. So we had to kind of talk like this, and we were the hillbillies. So we had to kind of make up
Yeah.
this corny, routine, and we had a ball. Ashley and I had a lot of fun, and we're still friends today. So we talk about it. We were at CAC in August, and we took some pictures, and we got napkins, and we cut holes in it. Did this like pretending like we were Sarah and Mabel. So it was fun, lots of fun, but it was definitely a challenge. Trying to remember. Okay, well the masks were on, and they were kind of like gunny sacks, not
Mm-hmm.
like a mask, right? So they weren't really firm, so they moved around a lot, and it was comical. It was a lot of fun, but
Yeah.
a lot of people don't even know that I did that and that character was me. You know, or even Ashley, neither one of us. And even into recent days, when we do stuff today, there's some of the season 3 and 4 girls that I never worked with. So I only met them after Glow. And so they're like, I didn't even know that was you. I didn't know you played that character. Like, yeah, that was me. So it's fun, hindsight now, being able to talk about all the things we did, and being lucky and fortunate that we were on the beginning, the beginning and the start of a movement, or what
Yeah.
call it, for women's wrestling. That I look at what I did as Royal Hawaiian, and the character that I developed, and everything that the fans loved. And at one point they asked me to switch and be a face, and I said no. I said, how am I going to crush pineapples and spit pineapple in fans'
It's
faces,
hard.
opponents, or whatever? I said, I'm not going to do that. I said, how am I going to be a goody two shoe? I'm not going to be a baby face. And so I just stuck to my ground, and I said, no. I said, I'm having too much of a ball being the, cheating and pulling hair and tying shoelaces and doing whatever I had to do to win. And it was like the fans really kind of followed and just liked the heel. And so I told them no, and they let me stay a heel. And they kept on trying to get someone. And then Nanuchka, I trained Nanuchka, and they eventually got to her. And that's one that I would have never changed from being a heel. She was the best heel, the Russian all the way, just everything about it. and they were able to con her, and they switched her to like the ballerina that she wanted to be, right? And so she ended up being a face. And I just worked with her 2 times last month and the month before. We did a couple shows together, so we get to work together. And it took me a long time to get her on board because she wasn't doing any kind of events or appearances or anything. And it took me a while, I'd say probably a good 5 years, to massage her and tell her, come on, just go on the radio with me for an interview. And, she started with that, and then she'd do, another one. And then finally I said, there's an event coming to Vegas, and that's where she lives. I said, come on, just come by, stop by and visit with me, And I got her to do one show, and then I got her to do another one. And then I even got her to even come to LA eventually, but then she had another job because she's a choreographer and a costume designer and all that. So she had something else come up, and she ended up not being able to come. But she's a hoot. She's a fan favorite. The fans always ask about her. So now finally I've gotten her to where she is, kind of full fledged. There's not many of us that do, the conventions and the appearances,
Yeah.
all of that stuff today. So there's probably maybe about 5 or 6 of us, maybe not more than 8, maybe. I think the most I've been able to gather together is about eight of us at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really kind of the only one that supports the indie wrestling. Like everybody else does
Yeah.
the conventions and stuff like that, but I do, whether it's here or Vegas, Arizona, Washington, wherever. I try to help promote and support the local indie promotions that are either new and just coming out, or are just starting.
Yeah,
And
you have to.
yeah, they got to start somewhere, and I'm always promoting the female wrestlers. So you can ask anybody that, I'm all for advocating for the women wrestlers. And I lend them, the Glow logo and my face and my name, and do meet and greets and try to get butts in the seats,
Yeah.
and do that. And then for the girls, when I do a show and someone asks me to travel, whether it's out of town or in town, I ask them, how many women's matches are on the card? And some of them will say, oh, we don't have any. I said, well, then what's up with that? I said, this is 2024, and you don't have, we're going to be celebrating our 40th anniversary with Glow in
Mm.
2026. I said, and you mean to tell me you don't have one match? So I went to a show. I just did a meet and greet with AFA here in California. It's Alliance for All with Barbie Boy, and he must have had a dozen, 10, 12 girls. Fabulous show. So the excuse I've gotten before is, oh, there aren't good enough female wrestlers. I'm like, are you kidding me?
There's so many today that can work,
Yeah,
and they're really
yeah,
like, if like male or female, I think that the athletes today are just tremendous. Like they're doing things that you wouldn't have possibly dreamt of 20, 30 years ago. It's insane. It's incredible.
hey, there's no way you could get me in a ring doing one of the things they do. Forget about a quarter or half or whatever. They are amazing. So
They really are.
I just, hats off to the female wrestlers, and like you say, male wrestlers. They're doing stuff today that we would have never seen back in the day. And the danger, I mean, they're dangerous moves, and the injuries could, I've seen stuff happen. I've been to enough live shows, but it's incredible, and I tell people, if you've never seen a live show, go on my social media and see where I'm going to be or whose show I'm advertising, because there's enough local indie wrestling here in SoCal that, what, you can see wrestling every weekend.
Yes. You
That
know, the legacy of Glow has just really left a major impact on professional wrestling, and especially with women's wrestling. Um, you've mentioned, you keep in touch with the indie stuff. Do you watch the current product, the mainstream WWE, AEW? What's your thoughts on that?
fact, I do. I watch all of them, and I actually um get to go. So last year I went to Impact's pay-per-view filming, and I got to stay and watch for 3 days because I did the same convention with them in Vegas. And so we were on TV, and being able to watch firsthand. It's exciting. And, and I do wow. I'm usually at wow's filmings, a good amount. Used to be at the beginning almost every night. Now it's a little bit harder. I've got lots going on and stuff, but I just went last month. I think it was last month to their filming. They have a new location in Glendale, a new studio that they're using. So that was really nice and upgraded and everything. But yeah, it's something I wasn't into wrestling prior to Glow, other than collegiate wrestling. So like my buddies were wrestlers in high school. Although I still knew who Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and Jake the Snake and Ravishing Rick Rude, and I knew that. I just wasn't a big wrestling fan. And then after Glow, or during Glow, then I got more active in being interested in the guys and what's going on in WWF and all that. And then after I left Glow, I kind of just separated. And in hindsight, we're so dumb. Like, we thought, why didn't I go back? Like, okay, I got hurt, and they told me if I had planned to have a family, they suggested I not go back to wrestling. So I listened to the doctors. They wanted to operate like immediately. So I never answered your question about injuries. So I had all these different things: dislocated shoulder, wrist, fingers, but the bad one was my back. So
Yeah.
Working on faulty equipment. It wasn't a wrestling ring. It was a boxing ring with no pad, no spring, no nothing. And I ended up messing up my back, and I had 2 bulge discs at the time. Now I have 3. I have 3 bulge discs. I have 24/7 sciatica down my left side. And I just got diagnosed in 2022, December 2022, with cervical disc and stenosis in my spine. And they wanted to do surgery then. And I told them no. I said I avoided the surgery back in the 90s for my lower back. I said I still don't want it, even though the technology is so advanced. I said, if you're telling me I'm going to be paralyzed, okay, let's talk. But until then, I got a second opinion, and that neurosurgeon said, I don't see that it's an urgent need to have surgery. He said, but your back you've been dealing with, and I'm a roller coaster nut. So even with my bad back, I've still been doing roller coasters. When I saw the neurosurgeon for the cervical disc problems, he said, you got to stop. He said, no more. He said, all you need to do is go on that Indiana Jones at Disneyland and get your one like a whiplash the wrong way. He said, and you could be where you're injuring something so bad you may need and have to have surgery. So I said, okay, doc. I said, no more roller coasters. Promise. You don't have to say anymore. And so all my roller coaster enthusiasts, Dan and David, they're really good fans, my friends, they're twin brothers. And I told them, you guys, no more roller coasters. And so I'll have to live vicariously through you, because I just loved roller coasters and those kinds of rides and stuff. And so that was like the big injury, was my back. And then now they did diagnose me with the neck injury and disc problems in my cervical, and then the stenosis in my back. So that's what really ended it for me. And I should have gone back. But back then we didn't know. It's not like today. I could have been one of the girls doing interviews backstage, right? Or in front of the camera, or I could have been a commentator, or I could have been doing ring announcing. I mean, so I've done a little bit of both. So I've had some promoters have asked me to do commentating. So I've done that. They've asked me to do ring announcing. I've done that. So I manage. So I do. So the first thing I did was manage, and that was with Otto von Clutch, who's now in Vegas, and he's a surfer dude from Huntington Beach. And it kind of just the whole vibe of the Royal Hawaiian and the beach and the surfer dude. And so it's really cool. And I come in. So this is still today. I come in with the pineapple. I crush the pineapple. And so either his opponent, if the opponent has a manager, the referee sometimes gets it. And then, of course, the fans get pineapple spit at them. We did CAC in August, and I was managing him and Maverick, and they're called the Profilers. And the manager for the opponents, he got pineapple so bad.
Oh.
It was so bad. He was on the floor and I was stomping him and spitting pineapple. And basically, after he got done, I just saw him because we just did a show together. Said, "Oh, by the way, I should be sending you a cleaning bill because it cost me $25 to get the pineapple smell out of his jogging suit,
Oh,
like what he wore as the manager, right?" And I thought, "Oh my gosh!" So it's been really fun. We did do one show where one of the girls that was in the show, she was fighting for her title, and she was allergic to pineapple, and we just did our match, and there was pineapple everywhere.
oh
The ring,
no.
on the apron, on the floor, up and down the ramp where you come in. Oh my God, it was everywhere. And then they said she's allergic to pineapple. They had to take a intermission for over a half an hour, and they had to mop down and clean everything.
Yeah,
So now
not
when I
good.
pineapple gimmick, we in the pre-show meeting, I ask, is there anybody allergic to pineapple? Because if they are, then they got to put our match after the other person's match
Yes.
problems. So the whole pineapple thing has just been an ongoing, it's my emoji.
Yep, yep, yep.
Either the pineapple or the flower. And so real distinctive. Everybody, the little kids call me anti-pineapple, or the girl. Fans in New Orleans call me the pineapple lady. They call me the pineapple queen. So everything is associated with what I'm known for, is crushing pineapples. And so, it could have been something I could have done. Like, I did a little bit of everything. I also manage AJ Mana, who's part of Knox Pro, and Rikishi, the bloodline. He's known as the Samoan shooter. So I do him also. And so there's all kind of things I could have done. I could have gone back to Glow in some capacity, but we never thought about it, because I could have been a manager. Who said we only had to have Aunt Kitty and Jackie Stallone, right? Nobody,
Exactly.
another manager, but nobody even thought of it because it wasn't happening. It was not even developed yet. Now you look at all the things there are to do within the wrestling
There's
in
so many
so
opportunities.
many things, right? And so we just never thought that I could have gone back to do that. So I went on and just carried on in everyday life. And when they asked if I wanted to have a family, I said, yes, I would like to have kids. And so, like I said about the airline, so I went to work for the airline. So I worked for over 25 years for United Airlines, side by side with my mom, but she was an on the job trainer, and I decided to just do everything I could. So I became a new hire trainer. I worked in the operations center. I was a performance supervisor. I became a project manager. I opened a call center here in the Riverside County, and ran an office of about 250 employees. And so I did all the things that I wanted to do. And then, many years later, we started to get together with the Glow sisters. And you've seen the documentary, and we did all those things to get ready for Fiji's reunion. And then that became an award-winning documentary, and Fiji was one of my favorites, even though we worked in the same season, but I never had to wrestle her. We always called each other Island Sisters, even though she was a good baby face and I was a heel. For the last part of Fiji's life, I did spend quite a bit of time with her down at all the different convalescents that she was in. She'd go from one to the other depending on what her need was. And it was a neat thing with us doing the reunion. And she was so surprised with there was about 40 something of us. And in total, there was somewhere around 75 of us. But we were able to get Angelina as the one, Little Egypt, who was able to orchestrate everything and try and get as many of us together. And Fiji was just wonderful. She was the best thing to be around. Always, a smile on her face, always making kids happy. And, she was just wonderful to work with. And unfortunately, she did, get really sick, and her knees were blown. So she was in a wheelchair. They were trying to get her to do the surgery so she could drop some of the weight to maybe start getting her knees and being able to get out of the wheelchair. And then it was just one thing after another. She eventually had, she was bipolar, so she was experiencing some emotional stresses and things like that. To where they'd have to move her back to a different facility. And eventually she got a trach. They had to put a trach in for her breathing. But she was comical all the way till the end. I mean, I remember when she had the trach, and one of the things that she always wanted, she would call me and tell me, oh, okay, I want McDonald's for lunch. And she would always order her meal, and she always had to have a Coke. And then whoever her helper was for the day, she would order them lunch. And so I would bring lunch and, come down and visit and bring her all her goodies. She loved to write to her fans. So I would get her stationery and cards and put stamps on them. And that way she could write to her fans. And she loved all her smelly, like Bath and Body Works
Yeah.
body wash and all the
Perfume and all that stuff.
she loved all that stuff. So I would always bring her all those kinds of things. And it was just a joy, but she loved that darn Coke. And so every time I would come in, I would always have to check in with the nurses to see how is she doing today? What's the deal? Whatever. And they're like, no drinking whatsoever. This doesn't matter if it's water. Because of the trach, they had to do like swallow tests on her to
Yeah.
make sure that so she wouldn't choke, right? And she knows that I don't drink soda, but I would drink iced tea. And I mean, that day she grabbed my cup and I'm like, give me that, I'm like, have any of that. And then I went by the nurse's station. They're like, no, we're going to do a swallow test on her right now. So don't give her anything to drink. And I'm like, okay. I said, she already tried to grab it. And so even though she had all these issues, all these medical things going on, she just was still as happy as a clam and just, always positive and just always so funny and, wanting to sing or, do whatever. So it was a special time, like for us. We had the same thing with our other big gentle giant was Matilda the Hun, and Roxy Astor was one who didn't get to work with her during the show, but did a lot of work with her afterglow. And so she spent a lot of time with her prior to her passing. So her and one of our glow historians, Robert Wynn, were two very instrumental people in Matilda's life at the end, just how I got to become close with Fiji at the end. And I don't know if you know, but we did just, Roxy and Robert, they had a play, Matilda the Hun, Raw Meat. And so I was in that with them for 3 days. It was a weekend run and it was fabulous.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. And we're going to be starting to do some other stuff with that. So
Yeah.
kind of fun. We're going to try and do some watch parties. So some of the people in the out of town areas maybe can watch it and see, but it was just something really special. So we had those two gentle giants, which, we've had so many that have passed. We've had probably a dozen or so, but it's history and it's their legacy. So she wanted to preserve, because between Matilda and I, we're the only two that really have any kind of memorabilia from Glow.
Wow. Okay.
So Roxy inherited all of Matilda's stuff, her costumes from Raw Meat, her belts, her wrestling boots, all of her, any of the memorabilia that she had, her pictures and all of that. And then I'm one of the only ones who has any kind of old vintage Glow stuff that I take on tour with me. And then I do also have replicas of some of the stuff because people have asked me, they wanted to buy it. Like, how do I get a copy?
Yeah.
And so I started, copying certain articles and just the flyers and things that I just kept. And so I do sell some of those at the events that I go to and stuff. But yeah, so it's really limited and we're working on some projects. Roxy and I are doing a few things together and stuff. So even though her and I didn't work together on Glow, we've worked together after Glow.
That's
so
exciting.
Yeah, so it is. And then going into, like, I know you wanted to know about some of the, volunteer stuff and things. Well, Roxy and I do, she does quite a bit with animals. She's an animal activist. She does a lot of the shelters and find homes for all the dogs and all of that. So she gets me to come along when we're doing a fundraiser. And we did one in Hollywood at Hamburger Mary's, and it was a bingo night. And, the two of us got together with, a few of our close Glow fans, and we raised, I don't know, several $1,000s in a couple hours just playing bingo and having the presents and giving away some globe, prizes along with all kinds of other stuff.
Merchandise.
Yeah, but she's a real big advocate for the animal shelters and helping out with that. And she works with Godiva, who's also
Mm,
a shelter in the Orange County area. So that's one of the things that I do, but that's just because I love animals and I help her when they're looking to raise money. But I also do work with the homeless organization with a lady named Katrina Williams, who is in the Los Angeles area and is CFM, which is Changing Faces of Homelessness. And we do not Skid Row and then some other outside areas in Carson and Torrance, and some of the populated areas that are really, really in need of help for homelessness. And there's one that's for senior citizens, and it's a mobile home uh, encampment. And I'm a senior now, so we got to help our generation.
exactly. Yeah. It's
Yeah, it's sad. It's really, really sad. There isn't enough help from the city, the government, the federal government even. It's very sad. Our veterans that are left homeless and they fought for our country and we leave them on the streets. So that's one of the things that's dear to my heart, is helping out, because you never know when that could be you. And unfortunately for me, if you would have asked me would I've ever been homeless, I would have said no, never, ever. And I was homeless for 3 months. My ex-husband cheated on me, left me with nothing, and stole my
sorry.
money. Yeah, and I was homeless for 3 months, living in my van. You
That's
know,
so hard because you don't have any place to really go, nothing to eat, nothing to drink, and it's just
and luckily for me,
miserable.
I was on the high end of being homeless. Like I did have some places to go certain times, and I did have food, but I'm a diabetic. So it was hard being where I have insulin that has to be refrigerated, So I frequented like Starbucks and Del Taco, and they would provide ice for me to put in baggies to put in my cooler bag, small little cooler bag that I keep my insulin in. And so there were some, trying times and such, but I did. I physically slept in my van for 3 months. I went to the gym every day and I worked out, showered and changed at the gym, and hung out at Starbucks. And the people at Starbucks are wonderful. And, I did all my things that I needed to do, doctor's appointments and what have you. But so that part is, something that I like to work on and volunteer, and I get some of my wrestling friends involved. The other thing is I'm an advocate for suicide prevention and
Yes.
working with a
Mentioned
couple
that
or
before.
with bullying. So in particular, recently, I met someone who is just a wonderful lady. Her name's Kimberly Boykin, and she's actually a family therapist and is a editor of a health and wellness magazine, and she does all these wonderful fundraisers and works with St. Jude's and doing fundraisers for that. And she put me in touch, and I met a gentleman named Tim Flynn, who has a podcast, and it's called Breaking Bullying. And so he's had me on his show talking about bullying, because I experienced it myself. I also experienced it with my youngest son, who went through bullying in middle school. And, I found out that he was eating his lunch in the bathroom because he was being bullied, and he was being beat up at school. And, I had to go to the school several times and talk to the principal. And, he got in an altercation where somebody started beating on him, and he threw a book, and he hit the kid in the mouth and knocked his tooth out. And then the parents called saying, "Oh, we're going to sue you, this, that." And I said, "Really? Well, let's go talk to the principal. How many times has your kid bullied my son and been suspended? And now you're going to threaten me because my son was protecting himself and
Defending himself.
defending himself because your bully kid was beating him?" So that dropped like a fly, no problem. But so I've experienced it myself and in my family. And so Tim does this wonderful podcast. He's also a owner and a master instructor for karate. So he has a karate, it's called Cato Karate in Mankato, Minnesota. And I have another lady friend who is Carol Castle, who is also in Minnesota, and she works with Wrestling for Life as a nonprofit. Her son was a first responder and committed suicide. And so I've worked with her for several years. And we see each other at CAC periodically. And they have these wonderful coins that have the suicide hotline number on. And so I got them two together, which was just by coincidence, but they're both in Minnesota. I kind of have gotten into some things by way of wrestling, which is ironic. You know, you don't really think of the connection of the two, but you know, some of it has been regarding kids and the challenges with bullying and suicide, and not just kids, because Tim Flynn, who is, you know, a advocate for kids and bullying, and he's been bullying himself as an adult. He's running for the school board in his town in Mankato and is getting bullying online on social media because of what he's trying to do and change the school system. Because right now in the school district that his kids go to, if there's bullying, their remedy for bullying is you have to go online, and it takes 3 weeks to report a bullying incident. And so I went on his show, and I'm over here brainstorming and just throwing ideas at him. And I'm saying, no, bullying has to be reported now, like immediately. You have to have something in place, whether it's teachers, counselors, whoever needs to be versed on all of these kinds of things. Teen suicide or just young suicide is now the number 3 cause of death in teenage all the way up to the age of 24, that it's raised and it's that high. The pandemic didn't help. The isolation of kids and not being able to see their friends and not being able to leave the house and all those things has upped that so high. I have a personal friend who left his house, left his daughter at home, went to Home Depot or somewhere, came back, and she hung herself while he was gone.
That's terrible. I'm so sorry that happened.
13, 14 years old, you know.
Disgusting.
Why is this happening? And yet we have adults doing the same thing to other adults who are actively trying to help resolve or implement procedures to help kids with bullying. So, you know, so kind of brought me on board, and I am participating, you know, as much as I can. He comes in from Minnesota to California for different events. So, you know, I'm here. The least I can do is, you know, help. So I'm actually going to be doing a radio show. I co-host the radio show, and I do with Patrick J. Martinez on ham radio. We usually do a few things during the month of suicide prevention, which was last month. And unfortunately, I've had personal family emergencies, and my grandson is very sick, and he's in ICU. This last go around, he's been in for 8 weeks. So I wasn't able to. Normally during that month, we do our radio show on suicide prevention, but I was out of town because my son, his family lives in Arizona. So I was there for a little bit. Otherwise, we would have done some more suicide prevention on the radio.
Yeah, I mean, it is just unbelievable how much hatred and violence there has been in the last few years, especially with young kids, and teenagers, because it's terrible. I mean, what do you feel like the cause is for all this bullying that's going on? Is it jealousy? Is it?
Well, you know, the internet and social media, you know, we look at that as, oh God, there's all these great things now that you can do because of social media. Yes. I mean, I look at it, and I'm glad I grew up when I grew up, because the 80s was the time. And, you know, we didn't have any of that. And so I look at the value of the things that we got to grow up on, that we didn't have all these influences. And today, kids are just inundated, and it's their life. I mean, I went to a family function, and around the sectional of the sofa, all the nieces and nephews are like this. Every single one, like 8 of them, from all ages, from 7 on up to teenagers or whatever. And I'm thinking, what is this doing to our future of America? Like, or the world, because it's worldwide. And yes, there's the benefits, but at the same time, it is a horrible place to be. Like, I have to decompress sometimes and just go offline, because I get inundated with messages and people expect you to respond. And I'm one of, from what some of them say, is I'm one of the few Glow Girls that does respond. So if I post something and people come on, I do try to comment back. It may not be today, but I will try to get back as soon as I can. And like right now, I've had to apologize to my fans and friends and family. Is I've got some issues going on, not just with my grandson, but with my own health and stuff. So I've had to kind of back away. But so imagine a teenager or a young child that is getting this negative feedback, negative bullying, just all the garbage that is on social media and that overtakes their whole world. I mean, everything revolves around that phone and social media.
Yeah.
And isn't anywhere for them to go, which is what needs to happen. Is there needs to be other outlets. There's got to be a resource. There's got to be somewhere for them to say, hey, you know what? I can't deal with this anymore. And I need to be able to call someone. We just don't have the resources for young kids, like the suicide prevention line that I was talking about with Carol Castle in Minnesota with Wrestling for Life. That life coin is manned by first responders. So if you call the national suicide line, you will be put on hold. So if someone's calling in dire need of help because they're thinking of suicide, you get put on hold. On this line with Carol Castle's nonprofit, those lines are manned by first responders and you will not get put on hold. The other thing that kids have a problem with is they're not going to talk to their parents. That's them and I have been brainstorming on what other ways and what other channels are there available to give resources to kids who are being bullied so they don't have to tell their parents. Most of the time, it's not their parents that they talk to. It's a coach or a counselor or a drama teacher or, someone within their school or activity that they participate in. Those are their mentors and people that they trust. And so we need those people to be aware of where can you refer someone? Where is the resource for these kids? Because they're not going to tell their parents. They're not going to reach out to their parents. I've helped people across the country who are having problems with possible suicide. And I said, give me your zip code. Let me just do some research and I'll get back to you. And I called the area that they were in to get the resource for them. Here's a mental health facility where you don't have to have insurance. You can call them, you can go there, blah, 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 blah. But we need something for the kids that are old enough to know that there's a problem, but don't have a resource to reach out to. Mm-hmm. So that's why we do what we're trying to do. And like for me, I just try and get it out there, whether it be a post on my social media or me doing the radio show and talking specifically about suicide and suicide prevention and what is there to do and how do you do it, or what do you need? What other resource do you need? Because maybe the resource that they need can help with the emotional and mental problems that they're having. Today is so much better than it was years ago where, mental health was not looked at in a good light. It was always negative. It was always, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're this. Well, no, guess what? I'm in therapy. I have a therapist and she tells me that list. Have you lost a job? Have you lost a family member, friend, a death? Have you had financial struggles? Have you had a personal breakup or disappointment, or there's a list of all those things, and guess what, my list, all the boxes are checked. And she's like, you were supposed to have a nervous breakdown a long time ago, and my doctors tell me that I am in writing so that if something ever happens to me, it's been diagnosed, I am seeking treatment. I could have a heart attack and a stroke at any time with the amount of stress I'm under. And people don't understand that stress will affect you physiologically and your body will start to do all kind of funky stuff and create you to be sick as a result of all these stressors that you're under. Yeah. So meditation, yoga, all the things that music, whatever it is that gets you in the mood to focus on something else that's positive. I just had a talk last night with someone and I said, you know what? We talk often, but I want you to practice what I'm practicing. I said, my therapist knows all the stress. I have an 8-month-old baby that is on his dying bed. In the last week, we have been given his last notice of he may not make it through the night. That's the kind of stressors I'm under right now, with also dealing with my son, who is having a multitude of other things going on because of the illness of his son. And so I'm stressed out because I'm the grandma. I'm going through the same thing, but she's helping me try to focus on not being emotionally negative energy. So I've tried to tell a friend of mine, we need to concentrate on, we're going to talk about positive things, happy things. We know that all the other stuff that has happened has happened. We don't need to keep rehashing it. We need to leave that where it is and we need to move forward. So we're going to manifest positive thinking, positive memories, positive actions, positive activities, whatever it is that makes you happy. We need to get those endorphins going. Music for me, I call certain songs, these are my happy songs I'll be driving down the street and one will come on the radio and it just brings, a totally different person comes alive. And, the person driving next to you is probably thinking, I wonder what the hell she's listening to, but that does it for me. I can listen to music and music will really get me pepped up and motivated and things like that. So I'm just trying to now, encourage people to think positive, manifest what it is your short-term goal is, set the short-term goals and inch your way to that down the road goal that you want to attain by doing positive things. Yes. So I didn't, I wasn't having therapy for some time because my therapist passed away and they couldn't find another.
Sorry.
It was crazy. I was like over a year without therapy and it was very, not good at all. And I'm like so excited that I have it. And I just can't encourage people enough to reach out and, even if it's someone that you just need to talk to, yes. Just for whatever is going on at the time. Because, suicide is not the answer. And
it is not. You're right.
And it's a selfish thing. And just think about, if you're thinking about it, think about all the people you're leaving behind in the state that they will be in if you do that.
Yes.
So just reach out, and there's lots of help out there. You just have to, and it's okay. It's not a bad thing to say, hey, I need help, but you need to do that. So, and then the check in with your friends. But so even though we're doing this a little late, it doesn't have to be a specific time. This is an ongoing thing that I like to do. And that because I've had my own issues, I've had to take a step back for a little bit, but I'm always my social media and my phone. I tell people I'm always available. I'm just a phone call away. You can text me, you can DM me or whatever. And if there's something I can do to help, even if it's just to lend my ear, I get it. I've been in that situation. And, the stress is unbelievable. It can make you sick and can kill you. Heart attacks and stroke are caused by stress. So can't say enough about it, but those are some of the things that I've got going on in like the next month or two. And then we're coming up upon the holidays, which is the worst time of year for me, because this is when I lost my mom the Saturday after Thanksgiving, 2009. And it feels like it was yesterday. And even subconsciously, my mind and my body just knows when November comes. Like last year, I didn't even pay attention, but I had 2 more losses the first week in December. So very crucial people in my life. And so it's a hard time. So you just have to, be proactive and reach out when you need to, because like I know November and December is the worst time of year for me when it should be the best time, because those were my mom's 2 favorite.
Yeah. Exactly.
the holidays and
Supposed to
family.
be positive, yes. Cheerful.
That's what we need to do. I mean, I know it's my downfall because I know it comes every year, but I'm trying to be, proactive and manifest the good. So right now I've got my little grandson to worry about. So we're gonna change it to the positive thoughts and prayers and going that route, and hopefully things will work out.
Yes, and I hope they do too. April, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. Where can people find more about you on social media?
Yeah, on Facebook it's April Hom, HOM is in Mary. And then on Instagram, it's at Royal Hawaiian 25. And most of the other, whatever, X and TikTok and all those are also Royal Hawaiian 25. So you could find me. It's not hard, but reach out, follow me, and I try and post as much as I can. And I'm gonna start doing some regular lives again. I used to do that regularly, and who knows, maybe the podcast will come back. We'll see.
Yes.
So much for having me on, Stanley. It was
absolutely
you. So hopefully you'll get some good viewers and some feedback. But thank you for the opportunity to share all of what I do and try to give back to the community.
Absolutely. And you're more than welcome to come back.
Thank you, Stanley. I'll get you some more Glow Girls if you want.
Yes, please do.
Oh,
all right. Sure. Take care.
Okay. Thanks. Aloha.
Bye-bye.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.